This happened to me this morning when I got into work, and I have no idea whatsoever how it happened. I arrived at work this morning at 7:45 and sat in my car for nearly 10 minutes before gathering my lunch and exiting my car to head into work and clock in. My fellow office mates, 8 of us in total, tend to arrive after me 2 or 3 minutes before we begin our day at 8 a.m. Today was different. When I exited my car and headed for the office, none of my office mates had arrived yet. My co-workers who work in shipping and receiving, meanwhile, have been at work since 7:30 a.m. I walked through the lobby, punched in the security code to access the warehouse, and headed for our break area to clock in on the biometric palm scanner. The device gave an affirmative message and displayed the time I clocked in as 7:56 a.m. Great. I opened the refrigerator door and placed my lunch towards the back of the top shelf before heading to the one and only stairwell in my office. This is where the glitch happened. I walked up the flight of steps, and to my shock, all of my co-workers were already at their workstations. I asked, completely startled, "When did you all get here?" They looked at me confused. Claire, our marketing manager, said, "We've been here for an hour. We're about to head to the boss's office for the production meeting. Where have you been?" Still shocked, I said, "Where have I been? It's only about 3 minutes before 8. As I gestured towards my workstation, the time on my lock screen said 8:58 a.m. Somehow, I lost an hour of my time walking up the stairwell to go to my office. My boss actually got involved in auditing my attendance and my workstation login because of this glitch. Unfortunately, due to HIPAA, she wouldn't let me take pictures of my attendance or workstation log. My clock-ins have been completely ordinary, except for a morning doctor's appointment in January, in which I clocked in at around 10 a.m. My clock-ins have been between 7:56 and 7:59 a.m. for all of 2021 so far, including the 7:56 a.m. clock-in on the day of the glitch. On a side note, my boss muttered under her breath that she wished that one of my co-workers, who is notorious for arriving up to 15 minutes late, would be more punctual like me. My workstation log took a different turn. I don't have admin privileges to my workstation, but IT did, so with their help, they accessed the event viewer so my boss could review the audit logon events. Most of our workstations run on Windows 10, except for the graphics designer who uses a Mac. I generally logged in between 7:58 and 8:02 a.m. However, on the day of the glitch, I logged into my computer at 8:58 a.m., the very moment I got to my workstation. My boss was surprised by this and asked me where I was for an hour, and I had no explanation for her. It turned out that she went downstairs twice and walked around the warehouse looking for me. Yes, the same one, and the only stairwell that connects the upstairs offices to the warehouse downstairs. We don't have an elevator. The day after the glitch, I asked my co-workers individually throughout the day if they had seen me at any time between the parking lot and our office, and none of them did. At least half of my office mates went downstairs at least once to use the restroom by the warehouse, as there are no restrooms upstairs. One of the guys in shipping and receiving even went upstairs twice, one time to talk to one of my office mates over missing paperwork, and the other to ask HR for his paycheck. He doesn't do direct deposit for some reason. As far as I could gather, my co-workers walked up and down the stairs individually and not alongside one another, even though the stairwell is sort of wide and can fit 3 people shoulder to shoulder, nor in contrast to each other. For example, one heading up the stairs on one end and another heading down the stairs on the other. In total, 5 co-workers plus my boss used the stairs that morning, and none of them saw me until I arrived. I looked at the call log on my smartphone that day. I didn't receive any calls except from an unknown number that my mobile company flagged as spam risk. I was not contacted via text message or social media either. Does anybody have an explanation for how this could have happened? Okay, so I'm 27 years old in Nashville, Tennessee, but this story took place about 12 years ago, back when I was living in Missouri. My family and I were from a small town called Reed Spring. It didn't have a population of more than 1,000 people. It was a closed society. Everybody knew everybody. You know, your cliché run-of-the-mill small town. But one Sunday morning, my brother and I were bored looking for something to do, so we both decided we'd ride our bikes down to our old elementary school. We were about halfway there when we noticed something odd. The path to our school was straight ahead of us. To our left, there was a road that had never been there before. Keep in mind that the elementary school was less than a mile from the high school we attended, so we rode on this street almost daily. The road was different from the rest of the streets in the town. It was new and made of asphalt, unlike the other roads in our neighborhood. It's an ancient town. And along the sides of the streets, there were tall red trees that didn't grow in our town or nearby cities, so we decided to go adventure down the road and see where it led. We left our bikes on the road to the school because we figured if we went missing, they'd find the bikes and make it easier to find us, and we walked down the new road. After walking down the street for a while, we felt something weird that I can't describe, but it was cold, not outside temperature, but our bodies were cold. The further we walked, we noticed a neighborhood with quite tall buildings in the back. My brother and I were shocked because our town was isolated from any big cities, at least an hour's drive to the nearest one. My brother insisted we keep on going, but at that point, I was too scared to continue any longer. Finally, I convinced him to go back, and we did. We walked back and continued to school. We spent about an hour or two there. We were on our way back. We came across where the mysterious road was supposed to be. There was nothing there. We were both beyond baffled, and immediately rode back to our house and asked our parents if they knew anything about the new road built. They had no idea what we were talking about. We also asked about the new town nearby, and they looked at us like we were insane. My brother and I were both creeped out by this. We never saw the mysterious road again, or the mysterious town. I grew up in a very small, rural, yet scenic town. You know, the kind that lays dormant until warm weather brings cottagers and tourists. The summer I was 18, I was involved with a guy, we'll call him Jack, who had a lake house nearby. I'm 22 now, and I haven't seen him since. The summer I was 20, I lived and worked in the city I moved to for college. I avoided my hometown at the time, which was 3 hours away by car, only going back briefly that year for Christmas. But one day, I got a random text from Jack. "Hey, it was so great catching up with you today. I'd love to hang out sometime like you suggested. When did you say you were off?" It took a while to explain to him that I hadn't spent more than 72 consecutive hours in that town in almost a year. Apparently, I had called his name back when he called mine from across the street. We had talked about the old days, and I'd given him a brief update on what I had said about what I was up to these days, including some information that he had no way of knowing. I mean, the way he described the encounter, I was basically doing exactly what I would have been doing if I decided to go back home for the summer. For the record, this wasn't the only time someone claimed to have seen me in my hometown while I was gone. It's just the most memorable. It was usually old friends or connections from high school who'd stuck around town after. Had a guy Snapchat me a couple of months after I'd moved, asking why I'd ignored him in an ice cream place when he'd called out and waved multiple times. A woman remembered briefly meeting my new boyfriend, with me of course, around Christmas. Another guy apparently sat with me at a bar once for a decent chat. Weird. This is just a little glitch, but I thought I'd share because I was baffled. So I hit my vape all of the time. I'm in college, stressed all the time, and working, and other personal things. I am trying to quit, and I will. Anyway, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I'm pretty antisocial, and really just do a lot of schoolwork and play video games. I always have my vape under my gaming monitor. It's literally there or in my pocket. I never take it to classes or anywhere I go, really. I went to grab it while playing COD, and it wasn't there. Checked my pockets, not there. So I look all over my little room, under my bed, in some sweatshirts, under the desk, literally everywhere, and I couldn't find it. I had gone to the gas station earlier, so I figured it had to be in my car. So I checked my car, under the seats and everything, and it's not there. And now I'm like, what the hell? I go back to the gas station to buy another one, and come back with the exact same vape as my old one, a red Vuse for all you nicotine smokers, and I sit down. It's now nighttime and dark, and I don't like to game with the lights on. I play COD for about 15 to 30 minutes with some buddies, and I grab the new vape out of my pocket and hit it. I go to put it under the monitor, and the old vape was there. 2 red vapes sitting under my monitor. I got chills. I checked there 10 times, enough to know it wasn't there. I stood there, freaked the hell out for a while, made sure no one was in my apartment, and I was in disbelief on what happened. So confused. A little pre-story. I was at home resting, and it was around 9 in the evening. When I was about to go to bathe, I saw my mum standing in the kitchen. The kitchen and the bathroom are connected by the same hallway, and the kitchen's missing a door. She was fully clothed, looking at me over her shoulder. I knew she was fully clothed because she was supposed to come back home around that time. I told her, "Hey mum, I'm gonna go bathing." She hummed and nodded in response. Then I went to the bathroom to start filling up the bath, and then I went back to my room to fetch my towel. She was not in the kitchen by that time, and just as I was ready to enter the room, my dad called me and told me to meet my mum to bring her home, because she has a deep fear of the dark. But then I remembered that I saw her in the kitchen, and I said that she came back early. My father just replied in his usual angry manner, and I complied, like the doormat I am. Her phone and purse were here, in the kitchen. It couldn't have been a hallucination, because my sister and I both heard her phone ringing, and my sister rummaged through the purse, and I held Mum's phone. Then I put it back into her purse, and left it where it was. I said that she came back and probably decided to check things around the property, if the doors are locked, etc., and I went to get in the bath. After some time, my father was shouting at me that I ignored him and stuff. I responded that Mum's back already and is probably checking around the property. He said she called him just now and asked for me to go and escort her. I did that. I dressed and went through the same hallway I mentioned. The purse was no longer in the kitchen. After I came home, I asked my little sister about it. She did remember, but the call logs are still in my phone, but they're not in my mum's. I called her 2 times, at 9:30 and 9:33 in the evening. No matter how I look at it, I just can't explain it. I'd love to know if anyone else has had similar experiences. I'm in my early 20s and walking to work one morning with my headphones on, listening to music. It was a clear morning in spring. Poodling along, minding my own business, I turn a corner, look up, and see a huge passenger plane flying low. It was so low you could see the windows. Planes make a lot of noise, and that noise would be heard over my headphones. This was in the days before ANC. My headphones were good, but not that good. So I take off my headphones, and that plane was silent. It was just hovering, maybe 100 feet or so off the ground. I was weirded the hell out, but I kept walking, otherwise I would have been late for work. I lived and worked in a village in the middle of nowhere in England at the time, so being about 8 AM, there wasn't anyone around. I was so freaked out, I put my headphones back on and kept walking. Every time I speak about this, people don't believe me, but it was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced, and I'm wondering if anyone had seen or experienced something similar. I wish I'd taken my phone out and taken a picture, but I was so miffed by the whole experience, I never thought to do so. When my husband and I found out I was pregnant with baby number 2, we were surprised but overjoyed. It had taken us a while and lots of scans to get pregnant with number 1, so not needing the intervention with 2 was relieving. We did, however, decide that number 2 would be our only other child, so I opted for a C-section to get my tubes tied. The pregnancy was normal, I had normal scans, everything was great. At 37 weeks, I went into labor and was taken for my C-section. My beautiful baby girl arrived, and the doctors went to tie my tubes. However, there was only one. "When did you have surgery to remove your right fallopian tube?" he asked. "Never," I replied. "Even scans during the pregnancy showed both of them intact." He said, "Your right fallopian tube was surgically removed. There's scar tissue and everything from a clear surgical procedure." My doctor was baffled. He searched all of my medical records and could not find any reason for my tube to be gone. I didn't have any surgery between the scan and the C-section, so there is no reason for it not to be there. He insisted it was clearly a past medical procedure due to the nature of the scar tissue, but could not explain when or how. Needless to say, only one tube ended up getting tied because the other one had been clearly removed. To this day, it gives me chills. I truly have no explanation for it. My boyfriend and I went to the gas station to gas up, and I sat in the car while he went inside to pay. I saw a noticeable man in rolled up jorts, thick boots, and a black tank top just walking back and forth in front of the gas station, talking to people. It was obviously strange behavior, but none of my business. So we moved on to our next destination, the grocery store, about 5 minutes down the road. We watched the guy still pacing back and forth in front of the gas station as we pulled out, and made our way to the grocery store. We didn't hit any traffic, and it was a complete straight shot. We pulled in, immediately got out, and the same exact guy we saw pacing the gas station was walking out of the grocery store. It was 100% the same guy, and we still have no idea how. There are no shortcuts or anything he could have taken. No idea how the hell he got there before us. Still can't come up with an explanation for it at all. Through all of middle school, there was a kid in my grade named Jack Miller. Jack was your typical high school nerd stereotype. Rectangular glasses, acne, shaggy brown hair, a small circle of similar friends who he primarily hung around. You get the picture. One particular thing about him is that he always wore sweatpants. Some kids actually had made fun of him for it because he would always, every day of middle school, come to school wearing those loose-fitting, straight-legged sweatpants you often see kids wearing. These are important details for later. One day, during the summer, after 8th grade, all the parents of kids in my grade got an email stating that Jack Miller had tragically passed away in an accident. Naturally, my parents, and presumably many other parents in town, sat down with their kids and informed us all of what had happened, and why our classmate would not be returning to school in September. Being that this was during the early days of Facebook, A myriad of RIP Jack Miller posts started to circle our community's Facebook page. Parents, teachers, classmates of his all posted about what a tragedy it was and how he would be so dearly missed and whatnot. I myself had a friend whose mum was close friends with and worked with Jack's mum in the same hospital, and we all got the grisly details of what exactly happened to him. This happened as a result of my friend picking up the second landline in her house one day and overhearing a conversation between her mum and Jack's mum. It was terrible, and all my classmates felt so bad for his sister, who was a few grades below us, and the rest of his family. Fast forward to September of 9th grade. The sun is shining. Girls are getting dress coded for their off-the-shoulder tops. Freshmen such as myself are struggling to figure out how to open their lockers, etc. I'm sitting in homeroom waiting for my name to be called, when all of a sudden the teacher reads from her roster, Jack Miller. I sat up in my seat, confused, and look around the room to find many other confused faces. The girl next to me whispers, I thought he died in August. And I reply, I know, what the... Here, says a voice from the back row. I turn around in utter shock and confusion because right there, sitting 2 rows from the left on the back row, was Jack. Many other kids did the exact same thing, and after a few seconds, nearly every eye in the room was pointing at a kid who responded to the name Jack, who had shaggy brown hair, rectangular glasses, acne, who was also wearing a pair of ill-fitting sweatpants. He looked identical to Jack Miller and was even wearing the iconic sweatpants we had all known Jack to wear every day. He looked confused as to why everyone was looking at him. The teacher went on reading names from the roster, looking visibly confused herself. Eventually, lunch came around and I saw in the lunchroom that many of my classmates had sought out this Jack Miller and were bombarding him with questions. We all thought you died. What the hell? How are you here right now? You're dead. Why is your last name different than last year? Jack Miller responded to these questions with the following explanation. He said, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I just transferred here because my parents and I moved here from XYZ town, about 20 miles away. My name's always been Jack Miller, and I'm not sure what you're talking about or why everyone's acting so weird. I'm alive and standing here right now. Eventually, this had become such an odd, talked about phenomenon that the principal stepped in a few days later and addressed our grade in an assembly. The abridged version of what he said was, I know a lot of you are confused about our new student, Jack Miller, because of what happened in August. Jack Miller passed away in an accident over the summer, and we just so happened to have a new student here this year with a very similar name and similar appearance. I don't want any more talk about this matter as it's settled. So basically, the principal had told us all that it was just some wild coincidence that this new kid looks exactly like the kid who died, who some of my classmates had spent grades K to 8 with every day. Something just didn't add up though. This new Jack looked exactly like the other one. If he wasn't the same person, then he was a spot-on doppelganger of the original Jack. Down to the minor details like the shape of his glasses, acne, hair color, clothes, and overall appearance. They were even the same height for goodness sake. I changed the names for privacy, but in real life, this new kid has the exact same first name, and his last name was literally 1 letter off from the original kid. So, life went on as normal, but all these years later, I still find myself wondering what the hell that was all about, and what a major coincidence it would have to be for this to happen. Any thoughts are appreciated on this matter, but I believe that somehow, some wires have to have been crossed in the universe to result in this humongous coincidence. Just to clear up a few things, yeah, Jack Miller's obituary is online. I just looked it up and the date of his death was back when I was in 8th grade. I've heard and thought about his death being faked for whatever reason, than him just returning to school as normal. Someone said it would be the worst witness protection program, which is funny, but the facts are that Jack Miller died when I was in middle school, and Jack Miller is a very real person who exists and is alive. I just looked up his Facebook page and he's still active on it. I was able to find pictures of both Jacks, one picture from Jack Miller's obituary, the other is from Jack Miller's Facebook page, but his earliest picture on there is from when we graduated high school. That being said, Jack Miller looks just like how Jack Miller would have grown up to look. They have near identical features. Also, their real first name is much less common than Jack. It's a name I've only heard a few times, and I've only ever met these two people with that name in my life, so that was another reason why it was so weird. I was in the grocery store with my daughter doing some shopping. We were down the canned chili aisle. While walking by the chili to the left, I mentioned to my daughter that it was too bad that no one in the house liked chili dogs. She replied with, "Yuck, Mum, hot dogs are gross." I said, "Okay, well we do need some canned corn." So I looked above the aisle to read the signs above the aisles and noticed canned vegetables were in the next aisle to the right. So we walked, got to the end of the aisle, and turned right. Before we turned the corner to the aisle on the right, I looked down it and saw the chili to the left. It was as if I did a full circle and started back at the beginning of the first aisle. I stopped and said to my daughter, "Hey, weren't we just down the chili aisle?" My daughter said, "Whoa, Mum, we were." Now, we're standing outside the two aisles, looking back and forth between both aisles. I looked to the one on the right, the one we were just down, and saw baking goods like flour and things. We both kind of tripped out a bit laughing about it and chalked it up to we must have been confused. I'm open-minded, but this definitely couldn't be possible. We wrapped up our shopping and came home. Fast forward to dinner time, minus a few details. The long story short is that I noticed my son's features looking slightly different to me. I kept saying how he just looked slightly older, kind of like when you send a kid to camp for a week, and when you see them, you notice how they aged just a wee bit from the last time you saw them. I asked my husband if he thought it possible for a person to notice the moment of the slightest aging in a child. We're pretty open-minded in our house, and like to entertain conversations that don't fall in line with society's standards. It's fun that we like to think for ourselves. At some point, a while later, my daughter said, "Hey, Mum, tell them about what happened at the store." I told the story, and my husband, being his lovable, weird self, said, "I think you experienced a glitch in the Matrix. Maybe my old wife is gone, and that's why our son looks different." I laughed it off, because I like to always see the rational side to things, and also thought that he was mostly joking. I have no idea what really happened at the store. Had my daughter not been there to experience it with me, I might have actually believed I was going crazy. I'm also a firm believer that this is how most of society is brainwashed to think, oh hey, they're weird and losing their mind, give them meds. Over the past 5 years, I've been on a journey of loosening the grip that society conditioning has on me and trying to unlearn most of the things from my upbringings. I'm also learning to think for myself and also try to realize that life may not be what it seems to the next person. Perception is everything, and experiences are different depending on who experiences them and how they vary. I'm not saying I shifted realities, but I'm also not saying that I'm insane. There's no black and white. There is only what I experience, and no one will see the things the way I do. Maybe I'll never know what truly happened, and that's part of life. Nothing has to have an answer. Not every situation out of the cookie-cutter life experience has to be labeled insane. My challenge to all the skeptics ready to deem me insane is that nothing is what it seems. Have an open mind. The next time you judge a person based on a story, think of all the times someone was trying to jury you based on a situation that you saw completely differently. Does that make you insane? Should you go and see a doctor because you experienced something that they swear is impossible? Or does it really matter if others see your point of view? Who decides what is sane and normal? Take out societal brainwash and think for yourselves. It's fun. There have been instances where things people say sound really loud, even when they're not close, and it sounds as if they're being said through a microphone. In general, I don't have great hearing, so I get really weirded out when this happens. The first time I remember this happening was with my family in an aquarium. My dad was talking, and all of a sudden, everything he said sounded all around me and really loud. I shook my head, and everything sounded normally. I was weirded out, but nothing major. The most extreme example of this was during a trip. There was 4 of us. 2 of us were on the first floor of the hotel, and the other 2 on the 4th floor. I was in my room, windows and doors closed, and I started hearing the 2 people's voices who were on the 4th floor discussing about conditioner. I know for a fact they were in their room on the 4th floor, but I could hear their conversation very, very clearly. I thought I might have imagined the conversation, because how could I have heard the voices of people 3 floors above mine so clearly, and they weren't shouting? So I decided to ask. I asked if they had been discussing conditioner that morning, and they looked at me all strange and asked me how I knew. I told them the details of their conversation, and we were all a bit weirded out. Does anyone know why this could happen? It's an odd glitch. This just happened earlier today. I've recently developed the habit of keeping a refillable lighter and a pocket knife in the inside breast pocket of my pea coat, on the grounds that one never knows when a blade or a flame might come in handy. I was at my parents' for Thanksgiving, and I realized my lighter was empty because I'm always playing with it. When I got home, I went to refill the lighter, and the entire pocket was empty. Throughout last night, I checked the pockets a few times because I thought it was odd that the emergency essentials weren't there. I was confused, but I didn't really worry about it. I had emptied my pockets at my parents', so I eventually figured I just didn't put everything back before I left. I even had a visual memory of the lighter and knife on the end table. This morning, though, I picked up my coat to get the mail, and I heard loose objects rattling together from inside. Not only were the lighter and knife in the correct pocket, but so was a pair of my driving glasses. I hear the, "oh, I lost something, but then it reappeared" quite a bit and roll my eyes. Karma is a bitch. I was working at home late last night into the early morning. I laid down to get a little sleep, and I remember putting my glasses beside me in bed, as I often do. I woke up and I could not find my glasses anywhere. I literally tore the pillows and blankets off my bed. I could not find them anywhere. I put the pillows and blankets back on the bed against the wall. I felt all over the bed one more time to be sure. Defeated, I decided I would have to put my contacts in. I went to my bathroom, and they were not in the top drawer where I always leave them. I keep the top drawer very neat. I looked through the 2 bathroom drawers also, and took everything out of the drawers. I put everything back as I kept looking. I looked again after I put everything back. Contact case was nowhere. I spent about 20 minutes looking. Then I needed to get to my office, so I just said screw it. I'll open a new pack of contacts, and I headed off to work. I live alone. When I got home, my glasses were folded neatly in the middle of my bed, and my contacts case was placed neatly in the middle of the top drawer. Recall that I had taken everything out of both and put everything back while searching. I know this seems minor and stupid, but something is messing with me. The next time I lose something, I'm taking pictures of all the empty spots. So, to start, I like to believe that I'm not a skeptic in any regard, but I just don't know what to make of this, and I'm trying to pretend I was just tired, but I don't know how to explain it. A few weeks ago, I couldn't sleep, so about 4 AM, I went to the studio I take a class in for college to get some work done. While there was one other person there who introduced himself as Peter. I don't feel bad using his real name because, as far as I can tell, he doesn't exist. I said hi, and we chatted while I worked. Nice guy. I watched the sunrise. He said he had to go back to work, on the other side of the building, separate studio, but I walked past it on my way in, and I said okay and waved. He took a few steps away and said, "Weird, isn't it?" I think he wasn't facing me, and since I'm bad at hearing, I assumed I misheard him and just nodded. I swear, 20 minutes after the sun was all but fully in the sky, which I know because the section outside of the building is very pretty, but without me realizing it, it was rising again. The sky had gone back to dark and the sun was cresting again. I went down and told Peter, and he found it funny. I've looked for him on my way in every day since then, since I saw where he sat. Someone else sits there, and I don't know them well enough to ask, but I don't see him anywhere in there. I contacted a security guard, but he couldn't give me the access records. But I asked about Peter on that night, and they said no Peter swiped in that night. That doesn't prove a lot though, because if you show up during the day and stick around all night, you don't have to swipe in and out between 7 AM to 7 PM. There is a Peter in the building though. I sent him an email asking him about it. He's attached to the hall next to my studio according to my janitor friends. But not only does he not know me, but he also says he never stayed in the lab longer than his class time. I'm wondering if there's any others, or if it's a fake name, if he was supposed to be there. It seems weird to pick a studio to hang out though. If you leave, you can't get back in without a swipe card. This happened when I was about 16 or so, and still creeps me out to this day. My mum and sister had left for the mall a couple of hours before, and I was in bed on my computer when I heard the very distinct sounds of my mum getting home. First, the big garage opening, the pause while her car drives in, then the door closing, the door into the house opening and shutting, and her footsteps walking in and through the hallway, pausing to turn the air conditioner on, the air conditioner turning on. I heard her voice, talking to someone I presumed was my sister, and then I heard her walk to her room. I didn't bother getting up because usually after she puts her stuff down and maybe use the restroom, the first thing she would do was come check on me. But she didn't come. So about 10, maybe 20 minutes later, I got up to say hi to her and found the house empty. Completely empty. I checked the garage and that was empty too. I was confused on why I hadn't heard her leave, but I simply called her and asked where she had left to. She told me she was at the mall, remember? I told her yes, but after she came home and left again, where did she go? Confused, she told me she hadn't been home, and that she and my sister were at an outlet mall out of town. Needless to say, I locked myself in my room until she was really back. My mum is a terrible liar, and my sister to this day swears they didn't leave the mall. Plus, I have no explanation for why I so vividly heard her come home, but not leave. By the way, the air conditioner was still on. This one happened quite a few years ago, late 90s, but I'll never forget it. My friend and I were doing our usual after-school routine. We were hanging out in my friend's shed and messing around, making plans for the weekend. It was myself and 4 others. One of my friends went to light a cigarette. When she flicked the lighter, the flame didn't line up with the lighter. It was to the side by 2 to 3 inches, like when the pixels don't line up on the screen in a video game. I clearly saw it, and so did he and one of the other guys we were with. We looked at him dumbfounded. He looked at us and said, "You guys saw that, right? It was like I threw a flame, but didn't move the lighter." 3 out of 5 of us saw this. We all went through numerous lighters that next week, trying to recreate what happened. We were never able to recreate the effect, of course. Still haven't after all these years. But I still try, every now and then. I should also clarify, it wasn't like there was some lingering butane to the side that had lit and the flame jumped. It was to the side, burning consistently for a good few seconds, and not lining up with the lighter. It didn't catch fire and burn quickly like a fireball would. It burned consistently, like it was still being fed gas from the lighter, just not above the lighter. The 2 of us that agreed we had witnessed it were directly in front of the one lighting it, so it was on the x-axis. The one to the side claimed not to see it. The other guy was playing guitar and not paying attention. So yeah, I guess it was on like a 2D projection for the 3 of us, since all 3 of our line of sight was straight at each other. It still boggles my mind. This was my weirdest glitch. I was in my 2nd year of college around October 2000 in Ireland, and had moved into this campus accommodation and had 2 random roommates. I was starting to get to know them for the first few weeks, and we randomly started watching a movie together on a weekend which had Denzel Washington as a cop and Ethan Hawke as his partner. The movie was really good, but I kept remembering parts of it and what was going to happen next. My roommate was like, "You must have seen this before," as I said stuff like, "Watch, he's gonna kill this guy," or "That's the guy's sister." Just had a really strong sense of deja vu the whole time, and it felt weird. Also, we didn't have any movie channels, so figured this was a movie that was on the BBC, as it had no ad breaks. I didn't think a whole lot about it until a year later, around Christmas 2001. I was going to the movies with my girlfriend, and here is a huge poster of the movie Training Day. I was like, "Oh, they must have re-released it, as I saw this ages ago." My girlfriend was like, "What are you talking about? This is brand new, and everyone was talking about it." I spent 5 minutes arguing with her that it wasn't, and I could tell her all the stuff that happened in it. She was like, "Fine, let's go see it," but I told her all the twists in it before we went in. Of course, everything plays out exactly as I said, but she thinks I must have gone to see it with someone else. Now, I'm a poor college student, so movie nights at the cinema were a bit of a luxury, so no way I was going to see the same movie twice. Here is what gets me about this. I watched the movie on regular TV with those specific roommates. I only lived with them for a year, and that year was 2000. I vividly remember watching it with those specific roommates who I didn't see very often after we moved the following year. Training Day wasn't released until late 2001. It was meant to be released in September 2001 but was pushed back a few months because of 9/11. I had to look that up today. The internet back then was pretty crap, and downloading movies wasn't really a thing, and no way there was some early release floating around. What really freaked me out was even the first time I watched it on that TV, I had already seen it, which means my brain somehow had already watched a movie that wouldn't be released for another year, and likely wouldn't be on a regular TV for another 2 or 3 years. Also, what TV station was I watching that was showing a movie from the future? What has always gotten to me about it was how specific a movie it is and how I felt while watching it. Also, at that time in Ireland, internet access was in college, and phones were basically the Nokia 3310s, which meant you couldn't even look anything up. I don't think I would have even thought to have Googled it the next day. And plus, I didn't really think it was a big deal, until a year later when I was in the lobby of the movie theater. I know it's not like knowing something amazing about the future, but it's always been such a strong memory for me about that specific movie and the situation around it. I wear 2 bracelets, one on each wrist, that I never take off, even in the shower, because they're sterling silver. I went to my home country, the Philippines, in 2018, and the bracelet I wore on my left wrist got caught on something without me realizing, and it snapped, so I had to bin it. Therefore, I only had 1 bracelet for the rest of the months I was going to be in the country for. I was upset because it was a Christmas present from an ex a year prior. Fast forward to the end of 2020, and I'm sorting through my jewelry box to find the exact bracelet in there that I snapped and threw away in the Philippines 2 years prior, and it was intact, not broken. I couldn't have bought another one because it was a present and I don't know where it was bought from, and I had already started wearing a new bracelet to replace the one I'd broken. I was genuinely shocked and quite freaked out. Let me start off by saying, I was reluctant to believe the whole glitch thing, but I've had some really big glitches that made me accept the concept as possible. But my need to have some sanity, I can in some way dismiss them, because they were things that had some level of uncertainty. Like, maybe I was misremembering, or just didn't notice, etc. But this little one is different. I went to a convenience store on my break at work to get my usual energy drinks. I'm a creature of habit, the same kind every time. I only change if they're out of stock, or have a new one I haven't tried. So I went to the refrigerated case and reached to grab 2 of the big ones I always get, then pause, because I saw they had a new watermelon one. Awesome, I thought. I love watermelon. I'll pick up the can and read the label, because I'm extremely allergic to most artificial sweeteners, so I always check the labels of new ones. As I read it, I made a joke about the can being red and green, very ironically festive colors. It was just after Christmas. I put the can directly under my arm and grabbed 2 of my regular ones, big white cans, 1 in each hand. I walked directly to the register. I was second in line. I was also the last. The guy in front of me paid and walked away. I walked up, put the 2 white cans in my hands down first, took the one from under my arm and put it on the counter, and I was shocked to the point of saying, "What the hell?" so loudly. I startled the cashier. It wasn't the same can. It wasn't the watermelon one. It wasn't the red and green sugar-free one. It was a black and blue low-carb one, not even close. Not even remotely close. Not only that, the can was dirty and dented, and it wasn't even cold. Sure, it was under my arm, but that was less than 2 or 3 minutes. The cashier asked what the matter was. He saw the dirty, dented can and said, "Oh, it's okay, I'll wait if you want to get one that's not damaged." I said, no, that's okay. No, I'll just get these. I know exactly what I had. I never put the watermelon one down. It went directly under my arm. I read the damn label, examining the can. The colors were so drastically different, and I hate the low-carb one. It's literally their only flavor I hate. Not only that, but it was dirty and dented. I never would have gotten it, even if it was the one I love, and was the last one in the store. Besides, how is it not the cold one I put under my arm? The watermelon one was noticeably cold when I read it. I tried to debunk this, but I can't. I never put it down. I couldn't have mixed it up with my other flavors because they are white cans and the large size. This was a black and blue small can, tightly held under my arm, and no one got within 6 feet of me with social distancing and whatnot. I knew it was something bizarre, so I sat in the parking lot, tried posting it to Facebook 3 times so I would have a record of the date and time, etc., but my phone kept crashing. I said, okay, I refuse to forget or dismiss this. I am not giving up. So I did a video log instead on the way back to work, so the event was fresh and accurate. The other weird thing is, I felt it starting to slip away from my memory, like it was being erased. I would think, I need to share this with so-and-so, then go to tell them, and then forget what I wanted to say. After several times of this happening, I got pissed off. I felt like it was being deleted. The anger triggered adrenaline, and it all came back in full, and thanks to my video that I did moments after, I know I wasn't misremembering. I thought, I'll now have no issues remembering it because I told it to everyone and anyone regardless of my fears of sounding crazy. Oh yes, and they did actually have a watermelon flavor that was new. I went back there the day after work to try and buy it again and was successful that time. And oddly enough, they didn't have any of the low-carb ones at all. So I think this stuff happens all the time to people. They just let the Matrix or universe auto-update their memories or something. But I have my auto-update shut off. I can only liken it to having a dream, then waking up and thinking, wow, I have to share this with someone. But the dream slips away. I understand how it happens with dreams because you're technically asleep and your brain is in a different state. When it happens with a waking event, it disturbs me. It's a defense mechanism of the brain to reconcile something it can't process, like a traumatic event. Although bizarre and weird, little glitches like this aren't traumatic or shocking. But as stunned as I was mostly calm, just a what the hell mindset. It's literally changed my view of everything. Our past experiences, did they actually happen the way we remember? Did they even happen at all? Did everything get corrected and we didn't notice? Is it how someone goes senile in a world where people believe memes and conspiracy theories over their own personal experiences within reality and logic? Who knows if anyone or anything is going to suddenly get changed? I've been holding this off for a while. I wanted to see if maybe anyone had a similar experience. To get the story started, I'll have to jump back in time to around 2015 or 16. I was getting ready to go out with my mother and grandmother to go to Hobby Lobby. And for those of you who don't know what Hobby Lobby is, it's a store that is full of art, craft items, candles, etc. It's like a Walmart for crafts and art. Anyhow, after I was done getting ready, I sat in my room playing with my parakeet because I had some time to spare. A bit of time had passed and my mother, whom I told to get me when she was ready to go, hadn't come to get me. I walked out into the living room and she was flabbergasted by my appearance. Not because of the way I was dressed, but because I had come out of my room. My mother claimed to have come into my room and said the lights were off. She checked all around for me and assumed I went to my grandma's. She lives right behind my mum's house. I told her I was in my room the entire time, and we both felt strange after that. Now, before this entire incident, my mother was very liberal, as well as a few of my other family members. A bit of time passed, and when I woke up one day, everything changed. My grandma, who was strictly against tattoos and dyed hair, began doing so. She got a tattoo and dyed her hair pink. I was highly confused and brushed it off as a change of heart. That wasn't until my mother became this kind of hardcore conservative overnight. It was all weird. My other grandma, who didn't like tattoos either, got one. Everything that I grew up with just changed. Little by little, I've been noticing more differences in my family from what I had grown up with. I kept trying to make excuses for it, but nothing was fitting right. I'm still stuck here in this universe that doesn't feel like my own. I've always been spiritual in the sense that spirits are attracted to me, and I connect with them with my third eye often. I don't know what to do, and I've read theories that once you hop, you can't go back to where you're from. And this isn't like a political issue. I'm not mad that my mother is conservative or whatever. It's just totally different from the mum I grew up with. Things have gotten weird. Some of my lifelong wishes have come true, but nothing feels right. Ever since I realized all of this, my brain has gotten strange. I suffer from bouts of dissociation, which at first I thought could have been seizures, except my soul feels like it's floating above my body. Nothing feels like it belongs to me anymore. My body feels foreign often. It feels as though my soul is trying to connect with a body that never belonged to it. I know I sound kinda crazy, but I'm saying this with 100% honesty from my side. I was going to try and make a video, but I don't want to upset my family or scare them by making them think I don't care about them. I tried to make this new life work for me, but nothing is helping. Does anyone know what I can do to adjust? I have memories that nobody in my family remembers, and I tried going to the doctors, who say I should get a brain scan and tests, but I can't afford that right now. They say I'm coherent enough to pass the tests, but don't know why I'm having these episodes of dissociation. I really, highly believe that this isn't my world. Those close to me can vouch for me, and I can get screenshots of old texts I've sent stating what I'm stating here. If anybody has any sort of idea what this is, please, I'm willing to hear it all. All I know is that doctors are puzzled, I'm puzzled, and nobody besides my boyfriend and closest friends know about this. I'm 22 now, and still to this day, believe I'm not in my world anymore. People I'm close to have forgotten past major events or conversations between us. I'm living the life of another version of me. I don't belong here, and honestly, I'm just living day by day. I encountered a situation 2 days ago. I've been telling my closest friend that I wanted proof that glitches exist. I messaged my mum immediately and told her that I wrote about a portal encounter. She messaged me back just moments later, freaking out that she was watching a paranormal show, and at that very second I messaged her, they were talking about portals. When I was 16 or 17, I experienced the void, a pure true black nothingness. I can't recall if it happened before or after the room incident, so can't say what is truly the cause of this glitch. Before hitting the void, I saw bits and pieces of different versions of me had I taken alternate routes in life, i.e. going with my mother instead of my father during their divorce. It only applied to major life events. It was as if all those paths could be viewed as videos, and they were all playing at once, sound included, like a see your life flash before your eyes, but I watched infinite lives. Kind of messed up seeing different versions of me in different styles of life, honestly. Makes you feel incredibly odd. I have vivid dreams and honestly believe when I sleep that I'm experiencing another version of me since we're all connected. But I've already grown accustomed here. I no longer crave to go back anymore.